What's up, guys? Coach Welch here with another edition of our Home Network series. Today's episode 5. Today we are highlighting one of our alumni. We're going to do a few of those coming up, and I'm excited to bring you guys Johnny Nicklas. Johnny's a 2016 graduate of Boston College, pitched there, 2012 grad of St. Seb's, as well as our Hawks program. He also trained at RBI growing up. He was one of our first members, so I'm excited to kind of see what he's up to these days. Just before we get going, I wanted to send everybody a reminder on the updated webinar series. If you go to your Google Classroom, you will find that we have some updated times and links for your skill sessions on Zoom, so be sure to check that out, as well as make sure you're up to date on your track program. We're following you guys, and we want to see those completed, as well as if you guys have any questions, please make sure you're reaching out to us about anything. We're happy to provide any tips on your swing, your delivery, whatever mechanical adjustments you are thinking about making. Make sure you allow us to help you guys with those. Send video. You can update your track profiles with media, so with videos in the media section if you're 14 or over, and if you're under, just email them to us and we can update those profiles for you. So without further ado, I'm excited to bring you guys Johnny Nicklas. All right, everybody, we're back. I'm here with my friend Johnny Nicklas. Johnny's a former Hawk, as I mentioned before. What's up, Johnny? Johnny is a 2016 grad of Boston College, played for the Hawks, and is currently a manager of strategic partnerships for the Markley Group, a very fancy title. So Johnny has experience with us as a player and as a coach, so we'll get into that. But Johnny, if you want to just give our Hawks a little background about what you've been doing since playing with us, since graduating college, what have you been up to?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Hey guys, like Chris said, wow, I'm getting old, but I've been out of college now for 5 going on 6 years. And yeah, I've been just working. So I started off, I don't know if I want to start with starting in high school, but I'll start kind of backing into this. Today, I'm a manager of strategic partnerships, like Chris said, which is a big fancy title for outside sales. And what outside sales is, you're meeting with people face to face, selling them on a product or service. And so our product or service is space and data centers. So it's commercial real estate in the tech world. Kind of marries the whole real estate idea with infrastructure and cloud and all those big fancy words you hear about today. Before that, I was at Oracle, where I kind of got trained in everything that I know today, from a tech standpoint and even a selling standpoint. So I did a 3-year stint there, which I learned a lot, and it was a good place to get my feet wet in the whole working world. And then before that was probably some of the best years of my life, where I was at BC playing baseball. And how I got there was very much from my time with the guys over at RBI. I mean, Chris, when did I meet you? When I was 11 years old?
2004. Yeah. So it's,
I mean, I moved to Foxborough when I was 9 years old. You guys, I want to say you opened right when I was turning 10.
Yeah.
And I lived in the neighborhood across the street. And
big advantage. It's a little bit of
big advantage. We must have been I think we were some of your first customers.
First 4, I think. There was 4. You guys were one of the first 4. So
yeah, I think it was probably me, my brother, and then probably Rhett Wiseman and his dad and my dad. And
yep. And Greg Marcotte, the owner of the building, he had his daughters in there. It was you guys.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, much of my time through, I guess, elementary school, middle school, and very much in high school was spent at RBI.
Yeah.
I mean, there was times where I was there probably 5-6 days a week. You know, it was kind of, you get home and before homework came baseball.
Yep. No, those were good days. Those were good days. That was, when we opened, you guys had just started. The Red Sox just won the World Series. So yep. Like we kind of opened to a baseball revival. And you, like I said, you were
Nomar was kind of hanging around here and there.
Yeah. He'd come up and hit. He'd draw a little bit of a crowd. So I think, obviously then you went on to St. Seb's and then BC and, are now, right. as we like to say at RBI, we're in GVG, now you're in the real world. And give me some things, Johnny, that, obviously you got your education, you went to a great high school, great college, but give me some things that baseball, in your sales position, in your partnerships position, give me some things baseball. What are some of the big things that they've kind of taught you that you take
Sure.
into your everyday life now?
So I think once you play baseball competitively and you start meeting all these different coaches and leaders that you meet, and you're kind of taught all these different lessons. And I think the lesson that I was taught early on was probably timeliness and how to manage that time. Whether it was at practice or, what time you had to get to school or class, or even now when I'm getting to work, it's kind of like you want to be the first one in. So a lot of the times I'm the first one in my office, and I get some crap from some of the other people around being like, why do you get in so early? And I like to prep my day. That's kind of always been how I've worked and operated. And it kind of goes back to my time in high school and in college. In high school, I was the captain of the baseball team. I made the team as a freshman. And so when I was a freshman, I was trying to work my butt off as much as I could to beat out the senior that was the starting left fielder. And then, also to beat out the guy that was starting on the Friday night game against Belmont Hill. So a lot of that had to be, first one to get my work in, probably the last one to leave. And you kind of see that really translate into the sales world, because in order to close that deal and make money, you need to put in the work. And so during my time at Oracle, I would be the first one on my team to enter the sales floor. And, back then it was a lot of cold calling and cold reach out. And that's the work you had to put in order to advance and move along in your career. And even now, I like to use that time when I get in, it's 7:45 in the morning when the day doesn't really start till 9, hammer out your personal stuff, plan your day, and then use that 8-hour day to actually get your work done. So, I had a lot of different leaders, obviously, throughout my short stint of a career right now, but that's definitely one that translates between the ball field and
that's
world,
something.
I guess.
Something we talk about so much, and whenever we have high school players that are moving on to college, kind of the biggest piece of advice is just time management. Time management is such a big part of it, but obviously you're touching on a lot of things there between punctuality. But something you touched on a lot there is competitiveness. When you're on, when you're the freshman, you're trying to beat out somebody for a position or whatever it might be. And then obviously your opponent, you talked on the competitive side of things. And, we like to say your biggest competitor is yourself. So I think that what you're touching on is exactly that. It says, in order to make that sale, you gotta have an internal fire there, right? And
right.
And obviously, I knew you at a very young age and knew that was who you were. And it's great to see it carry over to your professional world.
For sure.
I'm assuming you can talk a little bit about coachability too. I mean, when your company is not a small company, and obviously Oracle, pretty big company. You're working for other people, alongside other people. Can you talk a little bit about the ability to be coachable?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I saw the difference between a student athlete and a regular student my first time at Oracle. So I was part of a team. There was 20 different people on my team, and I had been promoted to team lead. So I was basically like the assistant manager. And it fell on me to kind of, the coach is one way to say it and reprimand is another way to say it, some of the folks on the team. So there's this one other employee who would walk in the door every day at 9:30 or 10, and there was always this different excuse, and she was always the first one out the door at 4:45. And so that's when you start to see that there's just no fire in this person, nothing that really got them out of bed. And her job was going to be on the line if something didn't change. And so it came kind of down to, all right, do you want this job? I mean, I know it's kind of cushy and everything, but you really have to get in here before 9 a.m. and like you can't be the first one out the door. So you see it in the working world for sure. And I'll bring it back to baseball. The whole coachability aspect too, and I'll tie this into Pete Frates a little bit too, is because
Yeah, I
he
was
was
gonna
one of
ask
our
you.
greatest. Yeah, he was one of our greatest mentors when we were at BC, and that was one of his biggest things. He tied leadership and competitiveness and being a good person kind of back to being coachable. We obviously had Mike Gambino as our head coach there, and he was a strict guy. This beard wouldn't have flown back then. It was you had to shave every day, so that was part of being coachable. That was a big gap that
Sure.
people had to fill there. But I like to bring it back to timeliness, time management. You have to be able to adjust to things in life, because things are adversity is going to flow and fly at you every which way. I think it was my sophomore year when the bubble collapsed due to,
Oh yeah.
I think we might have came to
Yeah.
RBI once in a while to
Yep.
practice, but
Yep.
if you can't kind of deal with these different pieces of adversity, where we would practice in the bubble during the winter. So our practices were normally from like 6 to 8 at night in the bubble. But when the bubble collapsed, we were pulling up to RBI at like 8 p.m. at night in Foxborough, coming from Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And, would practice till 10, and you wouldn't get home till 11. And then all of a sudden you probably still had homework to do. So again, that's where the whole time management aspect comes into it. And you have to be able to adjust, and you have to be able to kind of work on the fly. And if you're not willing to deal with that and be coachable, then you're going to fall behind. You're not going to win that starting position, and inevitably you'll probably fail.
Yeah, that's great stuff, Johnny. I completely agree. I mean, obviously you've lived it, you're living it now, and you've actually been able to obviously pass that on to some of our younger players. I think those guys are 14 now that played for you when you were Coach Nicklas back when. So those were
Yeah.
some great times. I mean, I think one thing before I let you go, and this is great stuff, Johnny. I really appreciate you taking the time, man. I think
Sure.
one thing I'm getting a lot of questions on the college recruiting side of things right now. And I have my answers, obviously, but one of my answers always comes back to control what you can control. A lot of people are wondering what they can be doing on the college recruiting side of things, and I think you're a great example of this. Is you were a very high level high school athlete. You were up to 89, 90 miles an hour, junior, senior year of high school when you were playing with us. I thought one thing I thought you always did a really good job of is you spent time on your recruiting. You wanted to get seen. You wanted to do that, but it was such a small percentage of your overall baseball, high school baseball career. Can you talk a little bit about, what drove you to prioritize your development over what I call some of the noise of worrying about things you couldn't control?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because there's obviously only so much you can do. I did spend time writing emails to different coaches and telling them where I was going to be and which showcases I was going to, and
Mm-hmm.
what team I was playing for, and different things like that. But the coaches are going to be there, right? If you're a high level athlete and you put in the time over the past years, that's kind of all built up to build your brand. And so the coaches are going to be at that showcase. Don't spend too much time worrying about that stuff. Just go out and play. At the end of the day, you've put in the work, and that's something that I would tell these guys to do today. Chris and I were talking about it before the call. It's just, it's weird times right now, right? Your season's on hold, but that's out of your control. It's out of everybody's control. Even the recruiters don't know what they want to do right now. They can't get on a plane right now, and there's no one to go watch. So you're in the same boat as everybody else. So I would use this time right now really to focus on, go out on that nice day, like it's 55 degrees outside today. Go play long toss with your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe develop some weighted balls and get yourself on a program. One of my best friends is Chris Shaw, who's one of the guys in the Giants organization right now.
He's
been
pretty
called
good.
up. He's pretty good. He actually lived 2 floors above me the whole off season. So we spent a lot of time
Nice.
talking about this process. And I was FaceTiming with him on Friday, and he's freaking out. He's never gone this long without like touching a baseball. But what he's doing right now is he's in the gym every day. He's going for runs. He's focusing on his eating. I know these guys obviously aren't touching alcohol, but he's not touching alcohol right now. You know, we're in our mid-20s and he's focusing on getting his body better. And a lot of that too is he's working on his dry swings. He's working on the fundamentals, you know. He's going out with his dad still to the Babe Ruth field down the road. He's like, I'm losing my mind with no baseball. But he's like, what am I going to do?
This is his life. This is his career. You know, I mean, he's controlling what he can control. You know, that's really what it comes down to.
And
you know?
It comes down to that theme. Control what you can control. Focus on little things. You know, I don't know if anybody's watching that Last Dance thing right now that Michael Jordan just put out. But
that's what I got later today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good lessons in that, and I watched it last night, and it talks about being the best player that you can, and I think that's something that came out of that for me was, and I saw it in Johnny Adams when I was at BC, was he didn't let any of the outside factors ever control what he was going to be able to do. You know, what the other guys were doing, he didn't worry about it. He just focused on getting better himself, getting his good night's sleep, being the last one out of the gym, and doing all he could to be the best player that he could. So
yeah, man, those are two great examples coming from you know, a good friend of mine, Johnny. I mean, obviously you're a great example for these guys. That's why I wanted John here. I have some other questions for you, but I think I'm gonna have to hold off on them because you gave us so much good information there. So I really appreciate that, man. I think just like I said, thanks for everything. You've been around for a while. You're not going to be a stranger. I hope you're getting through this okay. Outside sales, not exactly the best time for outside sales, but I appreciate it, man. I know the Hawks appreciate it. We miss you, and I'm sure we'll see you really soon. Okay, buddy?
Thank you, Chris, and good luck to everyone. Just go out there and play some long toss. Everything will come together soon.
And it all comes down to the simplest of words. All right, buddy.
Exactly.
I'll see you.
All right, see you. Take it easy.